Marguerite is also not with us. Dominique is also incredible. We had a great connection. We met over the phone. She took a big leap of faith because it's such a vulnerable story. This is the last chapter. It's called The Elephant in the Room. And she's a beautiful writer, you guys. Definitely, read all the chapters and don't leave out Dominique's. It's amazing. She has 2 grown children, and she is not here because she is actually at an intervention. So I asked her when she first told me about it. I said, "Can somebody step in for you for that intervention? Like, can you? I really want you to be here." And she said, "No, Rebecca, it's not like that. It's hours and hours that she has spent with this 19-year-old boy who really needs her help today." So, anyways, Dominique is here with us in spirit, and now I get to introduce Julie finally. So many of you in the room know Julie, and Julie and I hit it off with the first collaborative book that I was so blessed to be a part of. And she is the founder of Influence Publishing. She is a best-selling author herself. She's a TEDx speaker. This woman is from the UK originally. She left England, sailed around the world for 7 years, and then wrote a book about it. So quite a woman, and we just have way too much fun together. Way too much. Yeah. She's becoming my world traveling partner. So yeah. So I get to ask you a question first, Julie. All right. And then, by the way, Julie is going to interview the authors after that. So Julie, you have never been a part of a collaborative book, and you have published many collaborative books, and I am so honored that you decided to join our book, and I would just love to hear a little bit about why.
So, as Rebecca said, we met each other when she worked on the first collaborative book, which was A Woman of Worth book. And then she came to France, and we spent a week together on a writer's retreat. And she came with lots of different ideas. But when we started talking about the significance of fathers and daughters and the impact that a father has on the daughter and all her future relationships, it's something that really, it sat really deep for me on that subject. And I had never really thought about my relationship with my father, but the more we explored it and the more we started talking about the subject, the more I realized that it's really very significant for so many women. The relationship that we have with our father actually reflects on all our future relationships with men in our life. And at the time, I was separated from my husband, and I started to see a pattern. And as I'm talking to Rebecca about her relationship with her father and the impact it had on her relationship with her male relationships going forward, I saw so many similarities. And then as we started to talk about the idea of a collaborative book, then I realized, well, this is an opportunity where we can see lots of different perspectives from how does that relationship change a woman, and how does that relationship change how she sees herself with other men. And so I got really invested in the topic, and ended up having a conversation with my dad, which put me in a whole different place. And I stood up for myself for the first time ever. And I never really realized that my dad had such an influence over me and my relationships. And so I felt then I really wanted to share that story. And it took a lot of courage to share that story. It's a very intimate story, and it felt like for the first time in a collaborative book that I really felt very deeply with all of the authors and what they were going through to actually share their intimate father-daughter story. So I'm just really happy that I did it. And And I think more than anything, it was because of my relationship with Rebecca that I felt that I wanted to really be part of this, not just be a partner in publishing, but be a partner in the book as well. So it was, yeah, very special. So thank you. Thank you for inviting me. So I'm going to ask the same question of everybody else. Actually, I'm going to start with you, Storma. So I'll pass you the mic in a moment. But it's very interesting. One of the things in this book that we really wanted was diversity. And so I'm really interested to know when you first had your conversation with Rebecca and she was asking you, why did you feel drawn to share your father's story? What was it that made you feel that it was important to share that story?
I was drawn to first of all, I was drawn to just your energy. Both Julie and Rebecca just have this amazing energy, and they were really excited about this project. And I thought, wow, to be part of that would be really good. It would be a painful story, right? Especially as a person without a father. And so I asked them, could I do a story about a fatherless daughter, and how a woman can still maintain her sort of psychological well-being and whatnot, even without a father, and that there's so much love out there for all of us, and how to avoid those pitfalls. So I thought that would be a really important story to tell, something that I think a lot of parents, when you split up and things happen and whatnot. My beautiful mother is over there. She was so great. She was really But anyway, to your question, I felt that it would be healing for me, in addition to sharing my experience and how to psychologically deal with some of the pitfalls that happen when you don't have a father, and how to avoid that and how to heal. And I thought that would be a really important story to tell. So I'm really honored to be part of this project and to meet all of you. And so thank you. Thank you.
So I think that's what we have here is real diversity, and that's a really good example of the comparison of what does it mean to have a father and a father relationship which has been troublesome, and what is it like to not have a father. So you brought a really beautiful perspective to the book. Thank you so much. Thank you. So I'm gonna ask Darren next, because of course in the development of the project, the father-daughter book, suddenly we realized, we needed fathers to have a say in this book as well, not just daughters, but we wanted to hear it from the father's perspective. And so Darren, when you came on board, you had a wonderful story. And tell me, let me see. I think it's your chapter more than anything is a chapter that will touch a lot of fathers. So when you said that you wanted to be part of this book, what was it that you were hoping you could share with other people? What was it that you thought you could help other people by sharing the story?
Thank you for asking. For me, I don't know if anyone else has ever had that feeling of there's no manual for this. And being a dad, I became a father very young, and there was no manual for this. So I went to what I do, which was how I was raised. And one of those people is here. My mother's here today. My also beautiful mother. And my two daughters and my granddaughter are all here. opportunity to write about something, I thought, what if I wrote the manual for this? And if a young father or somebody who was like, how do I do this? You know, they don't teach this in schools, and the moms are unbelievable. All the moms out there, it's amazing to me how high the bar is set for you and what you're expected to do. And for men, for fathers, a lot of us, we're just thrown in it. Yeah, okay, we're here. I don't know what to do, but hey, I'm your guy. To be able to say, well, what if I wanted to be better? What if I wanted to do something? And I just wrote out what worked for me. And then what was the bonus, man, if you're listening, is that it helped me in business. And so I realized the same steps it took to be a great dad actually really helped me become an entrepreneur. It was really that same commitment to being great and keeping my word and being a role model and knowing I was going to screw up and still being okay. And you'll ask my girls if you want. I mean, I never screwed up, but I've heard other people that do. And well, okay, I did too. And it was the ability to bounce back and just know my intention was to be great and to be the best dad I could possibly be.
Beautiful Rosalind. What I found really amazing when I was working with Rosalind on her story is that her Chinese upbringing with her father and her relationship with her father actually had so many similarities to my relationship with my father, who was English. And that actually really surprised me. I didn't realize that that kind of English, stiff upper lip and very conservative way of being in a father-daughter relationship had many of the same similarities with Rosalind's story. So I really enjoyed working with you on your story because it also brought a lot of awareness to me around my story with my father. And so I think it's really interesting, an interesting perspective of what happens with different cultures, whether it's Chinese, whether it's English, whether it's African American, whether it's whatever it is, that we all have these very different cultural experiences with our fathers as well. So Rosalind, what I want to ask you is, when did you realize the impact of your relationship with your father? What was that moment where you suddenly said, oh, I understand that it was my father that was responsible for this behavior or my relationships with men? Was there a moment when that happened?
First of all, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to be part of the book this weekend. And as you were speaking, I was nodding quite a bit, like totally get where you're coming from. And to your question, there was a moment in my journey in 2014. I was on a call with a male business partner. We were talking about, typical business stuff, like, do we do this, we that, where are we going, this happened, that happened, and I had an experience of disagreeing. So I disagreed with my business partner on something, and what happened next was truly like I never expected it. And so he was unhappy with the fact that I disagreed with him, and he completely lashed out at me. So my experience was that he lashed out at me, and I could feel the rage in his voice, and he said many things, but there was one thing that he said. He said, "You will never succeed. You will never succeed." And at that point I went, where is this coming from, So in that moment I had a light bulb. Anybody had you know what I mean when I say light bulb? Aha moment. I had a recognition that was my father's voice. Like, it was coming from a different man, but and the experience that it gave me in my body, like the visceral reaction, was exactly how I felt with my father. Now, I didn't write about this in the chapter because it would have been entirely within itself, but it reminded me of a phone call that I had with my father. I was 24 years old, and I had just graduated from university, and I was leaving home for the first time, and I got myself a job, and I'm ready to leave the nest, and he asked me, so where are you going? I said, well, I'm going to Victoria. I got a job, and in that phone call he said, you will never make it. You will never make it. Now, looking back, I could see that was his fear. So my father had his fears, but then back to the experience in 2014 when I had this exact same experience with a male business partner. It was then that I had a recognition that holy, my father's projected fears and all his stuff and the way, the things that he said, good and bad and the ugly, was living inside of me. And that I was experiencing a lot of the ugliness too. Not only, for us women, it's really common to talk about our daddy issues in dating, but they show up in business as well. So that was my aha moment, and it was then that I recognized, you know what, I have more healing to do. And in this department, I had done already quite a bit. And ironically, it took me back, so in digging deeper in my own healing, it took me back to my Christian roots as I was growing up. So another context is, not only was I raised in a Chinese culture, but also raised in a Christian tradition, and going back to those roots and really healing my relationship with the divine masculine. And I would say that was the icing on the cake for me in terms of becoming more whole and truly reconciling this foundational relationship.
When you were just talking just now, I realized that my defining moment was actually the same year as you.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
That's amazing. I didn't realize that. But it's the same year. So that's incredible, right?
So sisters.
Yes, exactly. And actually, some of you know that I had a male client that, he almost sent my business bankrupt. It was the same,
Similar dynamic.
very similar dynamic, yeah. So interesting, very interesting. Okay, so Scott at the end there. Ow! So Scott, you bring a really different perspective to this whole father-daughter story. Because of course, we can't always stay forever with the same partner that we had our children with. And so Scott has brought a really different perspective to this book in terms of how do you maintain your relationship with your daughters when you've been separated from them because of divorce, marriage or separation. So I'm really grateful that you brought this perspective to the book because I think it's really important that is addressed because, let's face it, so many of us are on our second or third marriages, and the children, we have to think about how they're affected in that situation as well. So I'm really grateful that you had the courage to share your story as well, Scott. So what question do we have for you? Why did you want to share this story?
Thank you. I appreciate that explanation of my story. For me, the question about why I felt important for me to share the story was, I guess in a way, selfishly, I would never sit with my daughters. I have two adult daughters, and I would never see myself just sitting with them and telling them what happened after our divorce and what I went through and the struggles of needing to spend time with them. And I would never just sit and tell them my story unless they asked me. So for me, being able to put it out on paper and be able to talk about right from when they were born, what it was like for me to see them grow up, and it was just, it was very empowering to go through that whole experience. What Darren said perfectly was, you don't get a manual, but you know what, my whole point of wanting to get the story out was a bit selfish, and the other point was other people will be able to relate to this, as Julie mentioned. I feel that this could be an inspiration, my story. I feel like it could be a healing and also some sanity for people who have gone through maybe something similar or who have gone through something similar. So really that was what drove me to want to write this. So thank you.
So as you can see, this book really does have something for everybody. But of course, we can't leave you out, Rebecca. So I became really close to Rebecca during this whole process because, as I said, we were sharing very intimate stories, and that meant that we had moments where we were both scared and said, oh my God, what are we doing? What are we doing sharing these stories? Yikes. But what were your favorite parts?
Well, that's really easy. My favorite parts were these beautiful people who joined me. I'm just going to gush all day, but I really feel like it's been divinely led, the perfect people, and I just want to share that there were so many women who opened up to me, some men as well, with their stories, and so many who decided it just was too hard, not the right time, the relationship with their dad might be strained, and decided not to be a part of the book. And I also want to really energetically include them, because it gave such power to continuing forward with the whole process. And like Julie said, there was times, I've been scared off and on throughout this whole last year, and my story is raw and it's vulnerable, and there was days I felt like, can I really share this? And what kept me going was conversations with each of you, where I got to know that it truly was making a difference for them to be able to share their story, and that made me keep moving forward and going, this is important, this is good. And now some of the comments that we are receiving from people who have started to read the book really just make me know that we all made the right choice, and it was it was blood, sweat, and tears for a lot of us, and all really worth it. So yeah, thank you.
So we didn't get to hear from all of the authors, unfortunately, but everybody that wasn't able to be here, we have our hearts with them, and you can read their stories in the book. So we are going to be having a table at the back there where the authors that are in the book are going to be available for signing, and of course we have some books to sign as well and to buy if you want to buy a book. So please feel free when we have a little break to come and meet the authors, meet myself, meet Rebecca, ask any questions that you have, and spread the news. Spread the news that it's really important for us to share our stories for healing. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I just really want to say this next 20 minutes, half an hour is for mingling, getting to know each other, coming to our book table. And please stay around. The next part is going to be so much fun. We have our very special guest speaker. We have door prizes. We have a chocolate fountain coming and salsa dance. So it's the party. So please stay around, and let's have a break, everyone. Thank you. Washrooms, anybody needs washrooms, they're just out here to the left.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's waiting, right? Yes. Let's all come with you and make sure he wants to do that. Oh,
Okay, you're listening to Depictions Media, and this is Michael Clogs. We're here with at a Influence Publishing event. You heard some of the authors speaking about their book launch, and I'm going to be back with a couple people. We're going to do a couple interviews before we check out. Okay, so bear with us and just listen to a few songs. Okay.
Forgot that feeling, the sun in my face, it's so well needed. Life will take care of the rest. Biking alone in the sunset, through the canal, so the mindset I needed. Yeah, I needed. Oh, let's freeze time, gather around, watch the sun go down. Oh, in summertime, soaking up the sun, cruising around in Running around, are we there yet? Music is all where we all met. Just you and I. Oh, let's freeze time. Gather around, watch the sun go down. Oh, in summertime. Soaking up the sun, cruising around in this crazy town. Oh, just you and I. Just you and I. Let's freeze time. Oh, in summertime. Soaking up the sun, cruising around in this crazy town. Oh, just you and I. Just you and
Okay, so we're back here, and I found Stacy. She just purchased her book, and she's going to give us a few words about her relationship with her father, maybe, and what she thinks of the whole idea of the book. Welcome, Stacy.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's really an honor to get to talk today. It's an honor to be here at this event. It's very exciting. I've known Rebecca for many, many years, Rebecca Harrison, who kind of spearheaded this project, and or is it spearheaded? I'm not sure. And she did approach me early on in the project about whether I'd be interested in contributing to the book, because she knows I had a very strong relationship with my father, and he was a big influence in my life. And sadly, I lost him. It still seems very recent to me, and it was 5 years ago. And it was very sudden and shocking. And it's always I was always close to him. He had a huge influence in my life, and it's, of course, what often happens when someone passes is you realize just how important they were to you, and their many, many influences. So for me, it was a little bit too soon to write. I'm still processing, but I was very grateful for Rebecca for, even asking me about this and bringing up the possibility, and it helped me start processing what I need to, I think, with my relationship with my dad, and get me going to the next phase of grief. Yeah, he's special guy. I was an only child, and I love my mom and my dad. Very close to my mom, but my dad was the one I wanted to be like. He was an athlete in his youth and loved to tell me all of his high school stories, glory days, playing all different sports. He loved school. He was very social, and he went on to go to school at Syracuse University. So we were big Syracuse Orangemen fans, and I just, he really is the one who gave me my spirit for cheering other people on and getting so excited in crowds. He was big into music. He had the most eclectic music collection. And so going to concerts was so exciting. And I got that all from him. And just I guess the joie de vivre, you know. He was my best friend. He was, even though we lived very far away because he was in Ottawa, I moved out here right after university and ended up staying. But it was what I've learned and the many hours, days, weeks of reminiscing about my relationship with my dad, that the hardships were definitely what brought us closer. And the biggest hardship was when my mom left my dad after 36 years of marriage. So I was already grown, already had my children, and I was thrown into complete chaos. I never would have seen that coming. I've heard of this happening in other families and just accepted, well, yeah, that's life. These things happen. But when it happened to me and my nucleus, my family, life was just thrown into turmoil. Suddenly I didn't understand even what's love, what is commitment and marriage, and how could she leave after all this time. But because she did leave my dad, my relationship with him was almost reborn. And it had never gone away, but moving away meant communication was harder. And so I would just usually talk to my mom. They got very annoyed at each other in three-way calls because they were each talking too loud on the phone. And so they decided, no, only one person will talk. And then that ended up being my mom, and she would relay everything to my dad. So I ended up really not talking to him as much. And it was mostly me and my mom. So when she left, I had to suddenly be talking directly with Dad all the time. And it was tough. I'd forget what I told my mom. I think I had told Dad, but no, I'd only told Mom. And I was, suddenly having to send pictures, to my mom in Arizona and my dad in Ottawa. And it was just, it was suddenly just a whole new dynamic with my parents. But I realized how much my dad needed me. And we ended up going on a cruise together to Alaska. And it was just perfect timing. I had never been away from my husband and kids for more than a day. And this opportunity came up through family friends who were putting together this big cruise. They do it every 2 years. They would do a family cruise and put out the information to all their family and friends and see who wanted to go. And we had not seen these friends since I was 11, so it had been, about 25 years. But they were very close friends when I was younger. And my dad just thought, he's just going to go. He needed this. It had just been a year since my mom had left. And he asked me to go along with him. And all the planets aligned so I could get the right childcare and have everything organized with the family. My husband gave me his blessing. And it was the most amazing trip of my life, honestly. There were 150 in the group that ended up going. And to see these family friends that were so close to us, so important. They were there at the very beginning when I was born in the Air Force, when my dad was stationed there and these were our first friends ever, and it's like a little bit like a full circle situation. Reconnecting with them and really connecting with my dad, and that was the beginning of what ended up being many trips together, and just solidifying our relationship. And so that's definitely what would have been in my chapter had I written in the book. I'm really looking forward to reading everyone else's stories here, and I know that it's going to uncover more about my relationship with my dad, and having a daughter myself and a wonderful husband. I'm very excited to see how their whole relationship is going to be developing and what kind of story they would have too. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's a wonderful story. Yeah, so enjoy the party, and it was great talking to you. Stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to go back to the music a second, and then we're going to find somebody else to interview about the book. The book is Family Tree. All right, be back soon. And we're back, and I'm here right now with Karen. And Karen, you've been enjoying the event?
Absolutely, yeah. Very touching to hear the stories of the panel authors.
Cool. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you most enjoyed about the event, and then maybe a little bit about your relationship with your father?
What I'm enjoying about the event is I actually have read some of the chapters of the book, and so having read the chapters and then really seeing the people that have written them is very impactful in hearing their story a little bit more from their heart. Seeing them and hearing them express why they chose to write the book just gives more depth to continuing to read the book. And the venue is great. It's a beautiful day, and it's just good to connect with the people here and that are also learning about the authors and the stories and seeing how they may respond to thinking about their relationships with their father is interesting.
Well, what chapter touched your heart the most?
I really, really love the chapter that Scott Wood wrote. He wrote about his relationship with his daughters and the loss of the relationship because of a separation divorce with his wife. And he wrote from a very deep level of loving his daughters and not being able to really express the continuation of the relationship because of the separation. He was estranged from them. And he wrote very personal letters to each of his daughters in the book. And I didn't have a loving, warm relationship. My father was more distant. And so by reading his chapters of loving care to his daughters, it was almost like I could surrogate that sense of what a father feels for his daughters in a loving relationship. So it's very touching. It warmed my heart. And because I didn't have that kind of relationship, it's nice to know that men actually feel that way about their daughters. So it was very sweet and endearing. And I also really loved the chapter, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the gal's name, but she came from a Asian culture background, and so her father really wanted to have a boy, and she felt lesser than because she didn't meet the criteria and gender for her father, nor did she meet the criteria of what he wanted for her in her choice of careers. And I thought those are very powerful things to overcome in your thought, in your psyche, to overcome those things. And she appears and has expressed the healing that she has had in developing her career and her own personal journey, and had forgiveness for herself and for her father. And it's just very powerful to overcome that. So it's very encouraging for me to think that I don't have to carry those wounds. There's people that have really deep wounds and they've overcome them. So it just paves the way for so many of us that have wounds. We can heal.
Thank you very much. I did learn something that through this panel. I did learn something about Rosalind, because you're talking about Rosalind Rain Dancer.
Thank you.
And I've known her for a long time as an entrepreneur, and I never knew, because she's so successful. Yeah. So thank you for joining us.
Thank
You have a great day.
Yeah, you too. That was fun.
Okay, we're back. This is Michael, and we're still at the Influence Publishing event about Family Tree, and I'm here with Rose Chiron, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what she thought of today's event. Hold on.
What a fabulous event this has been with all the authors of the book called Family Tree. What a super turnout, and the panel was absolutely exquisite and really, really dynamic and uplifting. So I invite anybody to check out the book, The Family Tree, and it's been a very, very enlightening afternoon.
Did it get you thinking about your relationship with your father any differently?
The book was on so many different types of relationships. The one that really spoke to me was the one of fathers and daughters, because I am divorced from my husband, my children's father, and that part of the book I think would be very uplifting and inspiring to many people, because we have 2 daughters and we are so grateful for where we're at in our journey as exes that our girls are very pleased. So once again, the book is great.
Thank you, Rose. You have a great day. Wrapping up here, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Please do go to Influence Publishing and check out the book Family Tree and other books that they have. And if you're looking to write a fabulous book, there's a contact page there with Julie Salisbury, so you can actually go through their process and learn how to write your own book. So thank you again, and we will talk to everybody later tomorrow. Bye.